Welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about US President Donald Trump's visit to the Middle East, where he visited Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the West Bank. Let's get back to our panel right now. Dan, I want to ask you about what Israelis think of Donald Trump and this visit. Do they trust him? You know, here we had a president during the election campaign who was talking about moving the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He didn't even mention that on his visit.
Yeah, well, I think that Israelis feel at this point, in the aftermath of the visit, much closer in support of Donald Trump. Do they trust him? I think that they do trust him more in the aftermath of the visit. I think that during his visit, in a series of speeches and comments, he did make it clear his commitment to the State of Israel, to its security, well-being, the bonds that tie the U.S. and Israel. And he especially resonated with many Israeli Jews when he privately visited the Western Wall and said a prayer there. And I think the first sitting president that has done that since the establishment of the state. And I think that had a tremendous effect on the average Israeli in the street. And so there is a sincere belief at this point in time, at this early stage, I must emphasize, that he is somebody that has Israel's back and he has Israel's best interest in his heart. Will this last through the test of time? I myself am not sure. What do you make? This is a sense right now if you have to poll the Israelis today.
Right. What do you make of the personal relationship between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu? So in fact, Hanan Ashrawi called it a love fest.
Bromance. Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, they've known each other for decades. So they're not just introduced to one another. And clearly they've, over the years, developed a friendship. And I think that has been solidified during this visit. They spend a lot of time together. They also share many worldviews on many issues of economy, of just how to fight terrorism and so on and so forth. So I think that definitely contributed to a further consolidation of their friendship and relationship.
Raghida, what about the visit with President Mahmoud Abbas? Did that change the dynamic in any way? Did it give the Palestinians any more hope that there could be some solution to this conflict down the road?
You know, I was just yesterday or 2 days ago, I was at the Dead Sea for the World Economic Forum, and there was a Palestinian delegation there. And I was asking them about this, and they really found a lot of importance in the symbolism of the way that President Donald Trump treats President Mahmoud Abbas. They pointed out the visit to the White House, the way the Palestinian flag was displayed, the way the president embraced the Palestinian leader. And they thought that the symbolism matters in that part of the world. They thought that there's something that they could build upon. Now, of course, they're very well aware that whatever is going on is going to be costly for both. Both parties have got to compromise. But from what I heard from this Palestinian member of the delegation, they were looking forward to something that is happening behind the scenes. I don't know what it is yet, but it seems that something is actually cooking. And I think by the president saying that the Palestinians want peace, are committed to peace, he is reinstating President Mahmoud Abbas as a partner in peacemaking. And that's important also for the Palestinians, because the Israelis had said repeatedly, we don't have a partner in making peace. So the last point on this would be that I think President Trump, and through his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, he is saying basically that the approach is from, and you've heard it said before, it's the larger group coming in rather than, you know, make peace with the Palestinians and then the Arab and Muslim world will come along. I think it's in a way a de facto upgrade or amendment or expansion of the Arab Peace Initiative so that it will be a commitment to Israel, the clear one, should there be peace between Israel and the Palestinians.
Khalil, do you believe that, as Raghida says, something is cooking here? Because there's still a lot of skepticism around the world. You see it in most of the media that anything is going to move forward. A lot of that, of course, comes from the fact that there's been no detail on what Donald Trump plans to do about this. But could he surprise us? Could he pull off a deal?
Yes and no. Yes, to the first part of the question, something is cooking. Raghida is right. She knows that. And in terms of basically practical optimism to what is being discussed or rumored as the substance of this new initiative, I spent more than an hour and a half with the President Abbas, after his meeting with Trump. And we discussed in detail his impression of Trump, his concerns. He was very frank. And I thought he did well when he came earlier this month to Washington by at least putting himself back on the map, repeating clearly the terms of reference for a potential peace process from a Palestinian perspective going forward. He reinstated, if you will, what is called as the constants or the permanent issues that need to be, because frankly, a peace process under Trump is not going to be reinventing the wheel. We all know what it takes to resume peace negotiations in the Arab-Israeli conflict. The question is he going to deal with it fairly and quickly and decisively? And so that, remains to be seen. But Raghida was right in the sense that there is optimism on the Palestinian side. Some of it is justified, some of it is exaggerated, not justified from my perspective. And they do anticipate that whatever is cooking is going to be a serious, decisive attempt by this president to strike a deal. Now, again, in the absence of experience, in the absence of detail, in the absence of a plan, in the absence of a team, serious, team focused on that, like we have witnessed in the past, a professional team of diplomats and so on. Whether one can afford to be optimistic, I'm really not sure about that.
Right, Dan, does Israel share this optimism? Is Israel in the same kitchen where this cooking is taking place?
I think that, in the immediate aftermath of the visit, I think Donald Trump can congratulate himself on being able to satisfy all three parties at the same time, the Sunni Arab world, Israelis and Palestinians. But I agree with Khalil that it's too early of a stage to actually assess where this is going. And the devil is in the details, as we've all said in the last few minutes. The sequencing of this, we know what is expected from each party. The Sunni Arab world will need to adopt confidence-building measures towards Israel. The Palestinians will need to stop incitement. Israel will have to do something in terms of limit settlement activity and so on and so forth. The ingredients are well known. How it will be sequenced, how it will play out, so it can create a movement forward, that's a big question. And I agree that with the lack of an experienced team out there, American team, it will take more time and perhaps be slowly in taking off. But Jason Greenblatt, the special envoy, is going back to the region this week, and hopefully he'll get more assistance with more people helping him, and hopefully he can move this forward. So there is optimism on the Israeli side as well.
Right, Raghida, you mentioned earlier on that the president has domestic problems. To what extent do you think he's going to be hobbled by these domestic issues? In terms of what he can achieve, anything of substance that he can achieve?
Well, everything is depending on that, in effect. I mean, if the president is, I hope not, but if the president is in real trouble on the Russian front, if you will, then things are going to go bad. And in that case, his promises are not to be delivered fully, except then, God forbid, if he has to leave and the country is in shambles, that's a different story. I just hope, I think the United States is not in shambles. Whatever happens to the presidency, I think everyone is very well aware that the U.S. cannot fall apart.
Right.
So in that sense, that the commitments are commitments, and this administration is not only about President Trump, it's also about the people around the administration, starting with the vice president down.
Okay.
So yeah, his problems are his problems, but people pay attention to that seriously, but I think already the shift is made.
Okay, and we have to go right now. Thanks to all of you for being with us. That's it for this edition of The Heat. Thanks for being with us.